Congratulations to the class of 2020.
Selamat untuk kelas
Some of you have graduated
2020.
already.
Beberapa
Some of you
dari
still
kamu
have
sudah lulus,
finals.
beberapa dari
All
kalian
of you should
masih
be
ada
very
yang
proud.
final. Kalian semua
Graduation
sangat
is a
bangga.
big achievement
Wisuda
under any
adalah pencapaian besar
circumstances.
dalam kondisi apapun.
Yours comes as the world is turned upside down
datang saat dunia
by a
terbalik
pandemic
oleh
and
pandemi
by a
dan
country that's been swept up by protest.
oleh negara yang dilanda
I can
protes.
barely imagine how
Saya
head
hampir tidak
spinning
bisa
these last few months
membayangkan
have been
betapa
for you.
pusing beberapa bulan
Just
terakhir
as winter was thawing and you were thinking about
seperti
spring break,
musim dingin.
those of you who were away at college were either whisked home or stayed behind on a shuttered campus. Most of you had to finish semesters online, which had its ups and downs. You didn't have to worry about what you wore to class, but watching your teachers and professors try to work Zoom wasn't always pretty either. Either way, none of this is how any of you imagine finishing your final spring at school. Now, even if we can't all gather in person, I want you to remember that a graduation ceremony doesn't celebrate just a moment in time. It's the culmination of all your years of learning about the world and about yourself. The friends and family who supported you every step of the way, they aren't celebrating a piece of paper. They're celebrating you, how you've grown, the challenges you've overcome, and the experiences you've shared. You can see that love in all the amazing ways that families have come up with their own at-home graduations, drive-by parades to handmade yard signs. The point is, don't let the lack of a big, crowded ceremony take anything away from what your graduation signifies. Go ahead and bask in the glory of your achievement. And wherever you are, take lots of photos. Although, when I look at my graduation pictures, the main thing I realize is that I should have gotten a haircut more often. Now, as was true for generations before you, graduation marks your final passage into adulthood, the time when you're expected to fully take charge of your life's direction. It's when you get to decide what's important to you, the career you want to pursue, the values you want to live by, who you want to build a family with. That can be intimidating even under normal circumstances. And given the current state of things, let's face it can be downright scary. It's fair to say that your generation is graduating into a world that faces more profound challenges than any generation in decades. It can feel like everything's up for grabs right now. A lot of this uncertainty is the direct result of COVID-19, the 100,000 lives it's taken from us, the economic disruption it's caused. No one can say for sure how much longer the crisis will last. A lot of that will depend on the choices we make as a country. But, it will eventually end. Vaccines and treatments will emerge. The economy will begin to heal and life will start returning to normal. And you'll still have your whole life ahead of you. The thing is, class of 2020, what these past few weeks have also shown us is that the challenges we face go well beyond a virus, and that the old normal wasn't good enough, it wasn't working that well. In a lot of ways, the pandemic just brought into focus problems that have been growing for a very long time, whether it's widening economic inequality, the lack of basic health care for millions of people, the continuing scourge of bigotry and sexism, or the divisions and dysfunction that plague our political system. Similarly, the protests in response to the killing of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and Nina Pop aren't simply a reaction to those particular tragedies, as heartbreaking as they are. They speak to decades' worth of anguish and frustration over unequal treatment and a failure to reform police practices and the broader criminal justice system. These shocks to the system that we're seeing right now, just as you prepare to go out into the world, they remind us that we can't take things for granted. We have to work to make things better. They remind us that our individual well-being depend on the well-being of the community that we live in. And it doesn't matter how much money you make if everyone around you is hungry and sick. It reminds you that our country and our democracy only function when we think not just about ourselves, but also about each other. So, as scary and uncertain as these times may be, they are also a wake-up call. And they're an incredible opportunity for your generation. Because you don't have to accept what was considered normal before. You don't have to accept the world
Anda
as
tidak
it
harus
is,
menerima dunia apa adanya.
you can make it into the world as it should be
Kamu
and could
bisa
be.
menjadi
You can
dunia
create a
sebagaimana
new
mestinya
normal, one that
dan
is fairer
terjadi.
and gives everybody
Kamu
opportunity
membuat norma
and
yang
treats
baru
everyone equally and builds bridges between people instead of dividing them. Just as America overcame slavery and civil war, recessions and depression, Pearl Harbor and 9/11, and all kinds of social upheaval,
dan
we can
semua
emerge from our
pergolakan
current
sosial
circumstances stronger than before, better than before.
lebih baik
But
dari
as has
sebelumnya.
always been
Namun,
true at key moments in history, it's going to depend on young people like you to go out there and rewrite what is possible.
menulis ulang apa yang
I'll admit that
memungkinkan.
it's a little unfair to lay such a heavy burden on you. I wish that my generation had done
Saya
more to
berharap
solve some of our country's
generasi-
big problems, so you didn't have to. But the good
Jadi
news
kamu
is
tidak
that I
perlu
know you're up to
melakukannya.
the challenge.
Kabar baiknya adalah
You are the best educated generation in history
Kamu
and a
bisa
whole lot
menghadapi
more
tantangan.
technologically savvy. You've been exposed to more knowledge and perspectives than my generation ever was. You're more tolerant and empathetic, entrepreneurial,
lebih
environmentally
toleran,
conscious.
empati, wirausaha,
Even
sadar
before
lingkungan.
graduation, many of you have already
Sebelum lulus,
started to make your mark,
banyak dari
feeding the
kamu
hungry,
membuat
mentoring
Anda
kids,
memberi makan lapar,
fighting
membimbing
racial
anak-anak,
injustice, helping veterans, battling climate change.
ketidakadilan rasial.
And now, to see so many of you participating in peaceful protests, to see so many of you of every race and background
melihat
raise
begitu
up your
banyak
voices on behalf of justice for all,
untuk
well,
semua.
it's been unbelievably inspiring.
Itu sangat menginspirasi.
You make me optimistic
Kamu
about
membuat
our
saya
future.
optimis tentang masa depan
So as
kita.
you prepare for the next stage of what I know
Jadi,
will be a
bersiap
remarkable
tahap
journey,
selanjutnya,
I'll leave you with a few quick
saya
pieces of
meninggalkan
advice
kamu
for what they're
dengan
worth.
beberapa nasihat singkat untuk
First, do
pertama,
what you think is right,
lakukan
not just
apa yang
what's
menurutmu
convenient
benar,
or what's expected
bukan
or
hanya
what's easy.
yang nyaman atau diharapkan
While you have this
atau
time,
mudah.
think about the
punya
values
waktu.
that matter to
Pikirkan
you the
tentang nilai
most.
yang penting.
Too many graduates who feel the pressure to
Terlalu banyak lulusan yang
immediately
merasakan tekanan
start running that race for success
untuk
skip the
menuju
step of
sukses,
asking themselves
melewatkan langkah
what's really
bertanya pada
important.
diri sendiri, apa yang sebenarnya penting.
Too often they end up as adults who
Dan terlalu banyak
only do what's good
mereka
for
yang
them
berakhir
and say to heck with
orang
everybody
dewasa
else, and they end up
melakukan yang baik.
not having a lot of meaningful relationships or not really feeling as if they
Hubungan
made
yang berarti
a
atau
serious
tidak benar.
contribution to the world. I hope that
Saya
instead
berharap
you decide to moor
sebaliknya
yourself in
kamu
values that
memutuskan untuk
last,
menambahkan
like
diri pada
responsibility,
nilai-nilai
fairness,
tanggung
generosity,
jawab,
and
keadilan,
respect for
kemurahan
others.
hati,
That
rasa
will make
hormat
you
kepada
part
orang
of the
lain.
solution
Itu membuatmu
instead of part
menjadi
of the
bagian
problem.
dari solusi, bukan
And
dari masalah.
If
Dan
experience is any guide,
jika pengalaman
it actually
adalah
makes for a
panduan
happier
apapun,
life.
hidup lebih bahagia.
Second,
Kedua,
listen to each other,
dengarkan satu
respect
sama
each
lain.
other, and
Hormati
use all
satu
that
sama
critical thinking you've developed from your education to help promote the
Gunakan-
truth.
Kembangkan pendidikan.
You are the
membantu
internet
kebenaran.
generation and the social media
Kamu
generation.
generasi
It's not
internet
just
yang
how you
generasi
shop
media
or listen to
sosial.
music or watch videos. It's part of your social lives.
Jangan
It's the
hanya
new
mendengarkan
town
musik atau
square
menonton
where you
video,
all come
itu
together
adalah
and meet. In many ways,
tempat
it's been
baru.
an amazing tool. In your pockets, you have
Ini
access
adalah
to
hal
more
yang biasa.
information than any group of people in history. It's allowed
Cara
movements of like-minded people to
mungkin.
mobilize on behalf of worthy causes. But what's become
Namun,
clear is that social media
yang
can
menjadi
also
jelas
be
adalah
a tool to spread conflict,
medsos
division,
menjadi alat
and
menyebarkan konflik,
falsehoods,
perpecahan,
to
dan
bully
kebohongan.
people and promote hate.
Untuk
Too
menindas
often,
dan
it shuts us off from each other
kebencian.
instead of bringing us
Terlalu
together,
sering,
partly because it gives us the ability to select our own realities, independent of facts or science
bebas
or
dari
logic
fakta,
or common
perasaan,
sense.
atau
We
logika
start
atau
reading
akal
only
sehat.
news and opinions
mulai membaca
that
berita dan
reinforce our own
opini
biases.
yang memperkuat.
We start canceling everything else out. We let
Kami mulai membatalkan
opinion
yang lain.
masquerade as
Kami
fact, and we treat even the
biarkan
wildest
opini.
conspiracy theories as worthy of consideration. And the irony is that usually the people who are
Dan
peddling
ironisnya,
falsehoods on the internet or social media are doing so for their own purposes, either to sell you something
Melakukan untuk kepentingan
or
sendiri,
distract you from the
baik
real
untuk
issues
menjual
that matter.
sesuatu kepadamu,
You can
atau
change
mengalihkan
that.
perhatian dari masalah nyata yang penting.
If a friend
Kamu
tells
bisa
you
mengubahnya.
COVID-19 is a
Jika
hoax,
seorang teman memberitahu
politely correct them.
bahwa COVID-19
If an
adalah
older relative
penipuan,
cites some
perbaiki
video
dengan
to
sopan.
promote
Jika
a
seorang
racist
sahabat yang lebih
stereotype,
tua
show him or her
untuk
why that
mempromosikan
video is a sham.
rasis,
As a
tunjukkan
generation
kepadanya
that
mengapa video itu
understands
palsu.
social media and technology a lot better than anyone,
Sebagai generasi
it's going to be up
media
to you to
sosial,
create online
Teknologi
cultures and
jauh lebih
communities
baik dari
that
siapapun,
respect differences of opinion and freedom of
menghargai
speech,
perbedaan pendapat dan
and
kebebasan
also
berbicara,
restore
dan
the kind
juga
of honest,
memulihkan
informed, fact-based debate
jenis debat
that is
yang
the
jujur,
starting point for tackling the
terinformasi,
challenges we face.
dan berdasarkan fakta.
Finally,
Akhirnya,
even if it all seems broken,
jika semua tampak
have
rusak,
faith in our democracy
percayalah pada
Participate.
demokrasi kita.
and vote.
Berpartisipasi
Don't
dan
fall
pilih.
for the easy cynicism that says nothing can change,
Jangan
or that there's
tertipu
only
dengan sikap
one
sinis
way
yang
to
mengatakan
bring about change.
tidak ada yang bisa berubah.
In the midst of recent protests, I've noticed
Itu
that
hanya
there have been
satu cara
some debates
masalah
among
perubahan.
young people about how useful voting is compared to direct action and civil disobedience in ending discrimination in our society.
Diskriminasi di masyarakat
The
kita.
fact is,
Faktanya,
we don't have to choose, we
kita
need
tidak
both.
harus memilih, kami membutuhkan
Peaceful
keduanya.
protests and demonstrations are patriotic.
Protes dan
They
demokrasi
shine a light
damai
on
bersifat
injustice.
patriotik.
They raise public awareness. They make the folks in charge uncomfortable in a way that's healthy.
Tidak
After all,
dengan
we're a
cara yang
nation that
sehat.
was founded on
Bagaimanapun,
protest.
Bangsa yang didirikan atas dasar
Eventually,
protes.
though,
Namun pada akhirnya,
your aspirations have to be translated into
aspirasimu harus
specific
diterjemahkan.
laws and institutional practices. And that only happens when we elect good
Ketika
people
kita
at every
memilih
level who
orang-orang
are
baik di setiap
responsive
tingkatan.
to our demands. And that includes local
Itu
offices
termasuk
like the Office of
kantor
Mayor
lokal
or the Office
seperti
of District Attorney
wali kota atau
that don't get
kejaksaan.
as much
Mereka
attention
tidak
as a
mendapat
presidential
perhatian
race, but
sebanyak
have
pemilihan
the
presiden,
most
tetapi
direct impact
memiliki
on
dampak paling
issues
langsung
like how
pada berbagai
communities are
masalah
policed.
seperti bagaimana komunitas diawasi.
In fact, you don't even have to be an
Nyatanya,
activist to make a contribution to
tidak
our
perlu menjadi
democracy.
aktivis untuk berkontribusi
If you've always dreamed of
demokrasi.
starting your
Jika
own
kamu
business,
memiliki
go build a
bisnis
company
sendiri,
that is a
bangunlah
model for paying its workers a fair
model
wage.
untuk membayar pekerjaan dengan
If you've
upah yang
dreamed
adil.
always
Jika kamu
of being a
bermimpi
doctor,
menjadi
think about
dokter,
working in a community that's
pikirkan
short on
tentang bekerja
doctors.
di komunitas yang
There
kekurangan
are
dokter.
so many ways to serve.
Ada banyak cara untuk
The
melayani.
important thing is to recognize
terpenting adalah
that this
menyadari
nation
bahwa
needs your
bangsa ini
talents, your
membutuhkan
passions,
bakatmu,
your voice
minatmu,
to make it
suaramu
better.
untuk buat lebih baik.
You know, it's not always pretty, this democracy of
Kamu
ours.
tahu tidak selalu
Trust
baik
me, I know.
demokrasi kita ini.
It can be
Percayalah,
loud and
aku
messy
tahu
and
ini
sometimes
bisa menjadi
depressing.
keras dan berantakan.
But because citizens
Tapi
took
karena
seriously
warga
the
menganggap serius
mandate that this is a
mandat
government of and by and
bahwa ini adalah
for the people,
pemerintahan dan oleh
well, bit by bit, generation by generation, we've made
dari
progress.
generasi ke generasi kami telah membuat
Cleaning up
kemajuan
our air and water,
dari membersihkan
to
udara
creating
dan
programs
air
that lifted millions of seniors out of
hingga
poverty,
menciptakan program mengangkat
to
jutaan
winning the right
senior
to vote, and to marry who you love.
dan menikahi orang yang kamu cintai.
None of these changes happened overnight
Tak satu pun berubah
or without sustained effort,
atau tanpa usaha
but they
yang
did happen.
berkelanjutan. Tapi itu memang
usually
terjadi.
because young people
Biasanya
marched
karena
and
orang muda
organized
berbaris
and voted
dan
and
berorganisasi
formed
serta
alliances
memilih dan
and
membentuk aliansi
just led good
dan
lives
hanya menjalani
and
kehidupan yang
looked after
baik
their community, their families, their
menjaga
neighborhoods,
komunitas mereka,
and
keluarga,
slowly
lingkungan,
changed hearts and
dan
minds.
perlahan berubah hati
America
dan pikiran.
changed,
Amerika
has
berubah
always changed
Selalu
because
berubah
young people dared
karena
to
anak
hope.
muda berani berharap.
Democracy isn't about relying on
Demokrasi
some
bukanlah
charismatic
tentang
leader to make
mengandalkan
changes from on
kepemimpinan
high.
karismatik.
It's about finding hope in ourselves and creating it
Ini
in others,
tentang menemukan harapan,
especially in a time like this.
terutama di saat seperti
You
ini.
don't always need hope when everything's
Kamu
going
tidak
fine.
selalu membutuhkan harapan saat baik-baik
It's when
saja.
things seem darkest.
Itulah segalanya
That's when you need it the
gelap.
most.
Saat itulah kamu
Now, someone
membutuhkan
once said, hope is
Sekarang
not a
seorang
lottery
berkata,
ticket.
harapan
It's a
bukan
hammer for us to
tiket
use
lotre.
in a national emergency, to break the glass,
Keadaan darurat
sound the
untuk
alarm,
memecahkan
and
kaca,
sprint into action.
membunyikan alarm dan berlari cepat.
That's what hope is.
Itulah harapan.
It's not the blind faith that things will get better. It's the conviction that with effort and perseverance
bahwa upaya
and
dan
courage
ketekunan,
and a concern for others,
keberanian,
things
kepedulian
can
terhadap
get
bersama bisa menjadi lebih baik.
that remains the truest part of our American
Itu
story.
tetap menjadi bagian paling benar
And if your
dari
generation
Amerika.
sprints into action,
Dan jika generasi
it will still be
segera
true
bertindak,
of America's future.
tetap berlaku untuk masa depan.
Congratulations, class of
Selamat
2020.
angkatan 2020.
Make it mean something and keep
Jadikan
making us proud.
itu berarti dan tetap buat kami bangga.